Hi, everyone. Thank you for watching the East Village Queer Film Festival presented by Wild Project. You just finished watching our feature doc, The Unlikely Story of the Lesbians of First Friday. My name is Kassie Thornton, and I'll be moderating the Q&A with tonight's filmmaker, Kathryn L. Beranich. And so everybody, welcome Kathryn L. Beranich.
Thank you.
How are you today, or tonight?
It's still day where I am. I'm in Glendale, beautiful Glendale, California. And I'm good. Yeah, a day full of errands and getting stuff done. So
nice. Well, congrats on being in the film festival.
Oh, I am so thrilled.
So I'd like to know, first of all, I'd like to start with what inspired you to make this film?
Well, I was part of the group, and about 4 years ago, the Southwest Virginia LGBTQ Audio Archives Project, I never can get the name right, stumbled upon us being members of First Friday. And I ended up doing an interview with them, as did a couple of the other women. And I felt so good. I was like, yeah, finally, somebody's like realizing we existed and that what we contributed to the area. Then I started thinking, because I've had a long history in television production, and it was like, okay, this is my story to tell. And it just sort of lit a fire under me, and I started making phone calls to people that I hadn't talked to in 30 years, and everybody was on board, like really excited. So I started taking trips to the East Coast, which is where most of the people still live, and put it together. It took me about 3.5 years to get it all together.
Wow. Wow. Well, two-part. Thank you so much. I think that the communities of women who came before us in the lesbian community, putting the foundation of how important community is and how much a safe space is. And I don't take that for granted, everything that you ladies have done. So I just want to say thank you on behalf of all the lesbians. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Second of all, what was it like to reconnect with all these women after, what you said, 30 years, 3 decades? Like,
there were a couple of people that I've remained in touch with, but I've moved all over the place since my time in Roanoke. And then there were people that I had been really close with and hadn't talked to. And it was awesome to a person. Everybody was so excited, and no matter where they are now, they feel like we've never had anything quite like this. And I miss that. I miss that community. I miss that extended family. And so to see each other again, it was great, although I was stunned at how old some of those women had gotten. Anyway, it was fun. The weekend that it was supposed to be the world premiere of the film, but I wasn't done with it. It was really painful because I showed it, but it wasn't ready. Now it's done, and I'm very happy. But we had a whole reunion situation set up, and we even had a bus tour of Old Southwest, which is the neighborhood that a lot of us lived in. We rented a bus, and we had commentary, and this is where Kathy and Kay lived, and this is where Helen lived, and it was great. It was so much fun.
I want to see that footage.
Yeah, I wish I should have taken that.
Now you're from Wisconsin originally?
I am from Milwaukee, yeah.
Milwaukee, okay. I'm from Kansas originally. So I was like, yes,
Midwest.
us lesbians sometimes have to leave to find our tribe and then our whole thing.
Yes.
Were there any influences on like why you decided to tell this story? I know you said it was your story and the archive reached out to you. I mean, it's such a relevant time to tell this story. I feel like It's always relevant to tell the history of the fun and the hard work that people have put in. So I was just curious if there were any influences.
Times have changed so much. It's such a cliche, but we don't have the community spaces anymore, like a bar. Everything's closing up. And on the one hand, it's kind of great because there's more assimilation, and people were accepted. We being lesbians are accepted. But then some of the changes that have come about, it's like a lot of women don't like the word lesbian, or they don't like the word dyke, and I'm a big dyke, and I'm a big lesbian, and we put the L in LGBTQ. So remember us? We were there. We were doing that in the 80s and 70s and 80s. So just the need to celebrate who we were, what our lives were like then, and the magic, if you will, that we created. And what's interesting, you talk about community, and that really is what this is about. At a lot of different screenings that I've had, people have said, "Oh, we had a community like that in Lincoln, Nebraska. We had a community like that in Wichita." I mean, all these different places, and I realized that even though First Friday to me is very special, it's really a microcosm of what was happening all over the country during that era.
Yeah, you set my brain all over the place because you said so many great things. No, thank you, because one thing is, like, I think a lot of even my age group and the younger, like, they don't understand the Reagan era was such a different time to be a lesbian, you know, and what lesbians did during that time to help others in our community, and then also like take a stand for ourselves. And I mean, you mentioned in your film a few times, like, you know, you could be fired for, and that's still something we're fighting for, you know, and it's like, thank goodness that you guys put the foundation of that. The second thing I want to talk about is you mentioned safe spaces. And I know in the film you talk about trade winds, and then Barbara's Pack, which I just love so much of that. And then the Taylor House. And you had mentioned Judy and Jackie were the owners of that. And were they lesbians?
Well, that was always the question. Some people swear they were, and some people swear they weren't. So, and I trust both sides. I think maybe they were. I think I'd be stunned if Jackie wasn't, or Judy. Can't remember. Judy, I think. She's the only one I have a picture of. I don't even have a picture of both of them together. So I'm not certain. But
regardless, like, even if they weren't, I thought, wow, what great allies. And you know, even if they weren't able to express their truth during that time, they really gave the space. Like, I felt the sadness of when it said it closed. I was like, oh my God, what are they gonna do? You know, so and then like the camps, it was the importance of community and space is just a safe space is so important. One of my favorite, I guess you can't, I don't know if you can call them characters because it's like real life people, but Peggy was so funny to me.
By the way, when I was in Roanoke, and I may hold her to this, she came up to me and said, "Oh, Kathryn, why don't you move back here? We'll get married." I was like, if it wasn't for those Dobermans, because I'm just not a dog person.
I know. I felt like the dog was another character in it. I was like, that's just amazing.
She's hysterical, and she's real active. She lives in Salem, which is right next to Roanoke, and she's very active in the Salem Historic Society, and she's on boards of directors of, I don't know what, Kiwanis or something, who knows. But talk about assimilation, it's like, really? What?
Yeah.
But, she's retired from being a professor. So she's...
Well, I wrote down so many of the women. I mean, I tried to write all of them, Gail and Brenda and Allison and Holly, like all of them just like were so fun to like let into our life. Were there any women who said no, that they didn't want to be part of the project?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, and in both cases, it was, they were women who had been involved in relationships, and they wanted to leave First Friday behind because the relationship ended.
Oh, fair. It's like a different chapter.
Yeah, and I have to respect that.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. The newsletter, Skip 2 Periods. We have to talk a little bit about that because I thought it was a brilliant title. But also, did it go out in the mail? Was it something that arrived in snail mail?
Yes.
Were they ever nervous about getting that in their mail, that might out them, or?
No, we folded it up and put it in an envelope. You know, it was
okay.
brown paper.
It wasn't like
no, hey everybody, here's another lesbian, and this is what she's doing.
I was just thinking how different it was, right? With no email and like no paperless post and no evites. Like, it's not like you can just say, yes, I'll be there. I mean, you guys really had to be creative in how you communicated for these retreats. Yeah,
and even the First Friday parties every month, you know, we send out directions, no idea who would come or how many people. You know, it was all, we had a Rolodex. I mean, when we finally got a computer, access to a computer and a dot matrix printer, we could print out the addresses. Woo, really happening. I didn't do any of that part. I was more in the pageantry end of things.
Well, if you ever have a First Friday reunion, I think that a lot more will show up and we can RSVP in a right way, you know, or
Right.
an electronic way, not a right way, because I
I
love
know
snow
what you
melt.
mean.
My mom was a postmaster for many years. I love the snow melt.
Ah.
Oh, so this is kind of more of a heavy question, and I just wanted to ask that, given the current social climate of like the Supreme Court nomination and all that, like this film I feel like is so important because people need to see the past in order to make the present a positive future, if that makes sense. And so I just wanted to A, say thank you for that, and B, why is it so important to share the authenticity and importance of community? I guess, does that, I don't know if that was a real question, but you get what I'm kind of going for?
I get what
Okay.
where you're going with that. You know, women's history, no matter what kind of history it is, has always been shoved to the side. And so it's important in general for our history to be put out there. In lesbian history, especially like in the 20th century, you know, it's really invisible, you know, because we could blend a lot. We could pass, if you will, a lot easier. I mean, I don't think we had it nearly as hard as gay men did back then. But again, it was just a closeted lifestyle when you're hanging out with all the people you work with and everybody's talking about their weekend and, you know, you aren't, or I used to say, or you're using, you know, they pronouns. Now that's different, so that doesn't work. But, you know, where you weren't identifying the gender of who you were hanging out with. It was different. And I chose not to really tarry on the fact that life was hard then. Because we made the best of it, and that's what I wanted to share. So there's a lot of sad stories, of course, but you know, groups like ours, the communities like ours, they were important, and I wish that I knew how to make things like that happen nowadays. You know, I've had some women ask me, how can we start communities like this, and how can, but it was so organic, and it just kind of happened that we all came together from all over the country in this one little town. And we all had that same desire to create community and to be open and welcoming. You know, if you were a lesbian, you were in. I mean, you were, that's it, you know.
Yeah, it felt like it was meant to be, that you were all there at the same time for a bigger reason. And I thank you for making your film a positive film and sharing the stuff, because there's a lot of heavy stuff out there all the time, and to like watch something positive about something that, I mean, I think all of us as lesbians can relate, that it's really hard when you can't share what you did over the weekend, you know, or your heartache, or, you know, who you're hanging out with. So it was really nice to see a group of women who took that as importance for mental health and everything, just to be together and be who you truly were and not worry about that. So thank you for sharing something positive in our thing. The last question, unless there's anything else you would like to say that we haven't covered, I would love to open it up for the audience.
I'll think about it.
Okay. So I'll end with this one. Do you have any new projects in the works, or where anyone can follow you on social media to stay in touch with you and your work?
You know, we created a Facebook page for the film, but there's nothing on it, you know, so I wouldn't go there. I'm just Kathryn L. Beranich. I'm on Facebook like that if anybody wanted to message me. But otherwise, I have not pushed the film on social media much.
I did Google it. You can find it quite a bit with Google, like the trailer and everything. So that's awesome.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
So what am I doing now? I've shot so much footage over the years of different things, like my kids growing up, but I just don't really necessarily feel like revisiting that right now. But I had an aunt who died a few years ago, and she was a lesbian, and she was really my kind of muse and mentor in a hands-off kind of way. I mean, she never embraced that role, but that's who I I created for her. Anyway, so I shot a lot of footage with her over the years, maybe the 10 years before she died. And I'm starting to look at that and see what I can put together with that. And
I
then
look forward
looking
to
for a
it.
new project. Yeah, good. You know, one of the things about the unlikely story is that I was so concerned that who would want to listen to a bunch of old ladies talking about how much fun we had in our 30s? I know, thank you. And I'm stunned that people, you know, love it. And I'm so happy about that. It means the world to me because it is part of that greater lesbian community and putting that out there. And yeah, people can.
Well, I really, really enjoyed it. I thought, you know, who's the Barbara of our generation, like of the friends who will, like, you know, make the space for people to have that, you know, who are the Kathryns who are going to document that and tell the positive stories of like those moments happening. So I just want to say congrats on your film. And I really, really enjoyed it. So if you don't have anything else, we'll wrap it up.
No, it's nice to meet you.
Nice
and
to meet you.
Good luck at the festival.
Great. Well, that will wrap up tonight's Q&A. Thanks again to Kathryn, and thank you so much for watching. You can catch the rest of the festival, which continues this Sunday through October 11th, by visiting our website at thewildproject.org. Thank you so much. I'm Kassie Thornton. Good night.